YouTube. Welcome back to LadyGi. Thanks so much for joining me again. In today's episode number 2, featuring Muslim women who train Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, I got a chance to speak with Sana, who trains in sunny California in the United States, and this is her story. Hey,
Hello.
Sana! Hello, hello. Good
Hey,
morning. How are
Salicum. Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
you? I'm great. What time is it over there for you?
9:59 a.m.
Oh, wow. So is that bright and early for you?
No? Okay. So I just finished like college
Oh,
and
okay.
bright and early
Congrats.
was like 6, thank you. Bright and early was like 6, 7 a.m. But
Oh,
now that I'm on vacation, bright and early is like 10.
okay. Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Awesome. So how are you enjoying your new freedom, I guess?
Oh, just going hard with jujitsu now because I don't,
Awesome. I
yeah.
like.
How are
All
you? I
right.
can't believe I'm finally meeting you. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I really wish I could do these interviews in person, but it is what it is. I'm good. I'm good. I'm a little cold. It is freezing here where I am. I don't know what the weather's like where you are, but I'm in Calgary. So Calgary is like we're right next to the mountains, so you don't know what you're gonna get. You might get a snowy day, you might get Chinooks the next day, and that's like the warm wind that kind of like melts the snow. So every day is a little different. You get headaches and stuff, but you know what? It is what it is. We're moving into
It is what it is.
2023. So yeah, what's it like where are you located, by the way?
Okay, so I'm in SoCal, Mission Viejo,
Okay.
and Southern California,
Okay, okay, okay. Got it.
Mission Viejo specifically. And it's been really cold, and that's really weird for us. We don't get super cold weather. It's always like 70, but I want to
Yeah.
say it's been like the lowest this week's been like 49, I think, or 59 Fahrenheit.
Okay. We're Celsius, so I have to do a quick calculation in
Wait,
my
I
head.
got you. Hey Siri,
Yeah,
convert
that
59
would be pretty
here.
warm, I would say. Is
Okay.
that warm? Is that considered warm for you guys?
No, that's
No?
cold.
Okay.
That's really,
Okay.
that's freezing.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. You just did a little bit, but uh
Yeah.
tell me more about you. Who is Sana?
Okay. So I'm Sana, and I was born and raised in California. My entire life I lived here. And a little bit about myself. Okay. Well, I do jujitsu. I recently joined April of 2021 is when I
Okay.
started. And jujitsu is something I always wanted to do since I was like 9 years old. I
Okay.
watched my uncle do jujitsu growing up. He's a black belt and he lives
Wow.
in England. Yeah, super cool. He lives in England.
Oh,
So every time we went there to visit my family, I'd always see like, he'd be grappling with my brothers and I'd always think like, I wish that was me. I wish I could do this. And I never like truly found the right sport. I did a little bit of taekwondo,
okay.
aikido. I'm a huge hiker, which I love, but I always wanted to find that, jujitsu niche. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I finally found it. But yeah, that's that side of things. The more personal side of things, I'm a pre-nursing student. Alhamdulillah, I finished my nursing prereqs last week,
Awesome.
and
Awesome.
I'm a huge hiker. I love hiking, your average hiker, camper. And yeah, that's like my hobbies, so to speak.
Nice. You would love Calgary then, because a lot of people here hike because I think you guys are very mountainous. We're very mountainous out here, so people love hiking
Yeah,
in the
I want to come
outdoors.
up and visit you. Like, I want to come visit your academy and we'll go hiking or something.
Yeah,
That'd be super.
that would be so cool. I actually was thinking of um, once I get to know more Muslim women that do jujitsu,
Yeah.
of having like a retreat of some kind,
Oh my
because this would be the
goodness.
place to do it. So
I
I
would
am
come.
thinking about that, wheels turning in my head.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so okay, that is a very interesting story. So you started jujitsu because your uncle started doing it. That I've never heard that before. So
Mm.
what about jujitsu that felt that you needed to do it? Like what drew you to jujitsu specifically?
That's so funny you ask that because I was asking myself the same question because I've done a bunch of different sports. I even did soccer for like a few months when I was like 10 or whatever. and nothing truly attached me like jujitsu does. And I think what it is when you're rolling, you can't think of anything else. You have to stay present. You have to, like, it's bam, 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 rapid fire. Like, it's insane. And I realized after like the first 6 months of competing, why I was so addicted to this sport is because of that. Because I genuinely, like, I'm always multitasking in my head, and I have a hard time like just focus on one thing. And
Yeah.
jujitsu has taught me to do that, not just in the sport, but in life in general, with school, with this, with that, with whatever. I think that's the main thing that's drawn me to jujitsu.
Okay. And did you have any pushback from family when you started? Just I don't know about you, but I'm Pakistani background, and so
Me too.
okay, so then we understand each other. We understand. Um, so like my parents, immigrant parents came to Canada. I was born and raised here, but playing sports was not something that's really normal. It's not like a normal thing. It's not a necessity. It's seen as like
Yeah.
in my family anyways, it was like a nuisance almost. And
Oh,
so
really?
yeah. And so I didn't start jujitsu until I was an adult. I didn't even know jujitsu existed. I didn't even know that there was
Wow.
this thing called jujitsu. Like as far as martial arts training went, I thought it was taekwondo and karate. And that's
Yeah.
as far as my knowledge of martial arts went. And
Yeah,
um,
people say that to me too. They're like, "Oh, are you still
excellent.
doing martial arts?" And I'm like,
Like, wait a second here. Let's be clear on what we mean, but how we define martial arts. But yeah, did you have any pushback from family just being a female, being a girl, and being Muslim at the same time? There's a lot there.
yeah, I didn't. I'm very grateful, but I didn't. My mom was very happy when I started. In fact, I think it's mainly because I train at a Muslim-owned gym. I
Okay.
go, it's quite some ways for me. It's like 50 minutes on like a trafficy day, but I think it's worth it because you're surrounded by that environment. Like, you walk into the gym and it's like, oh, assalamu alaikum. And it's just like you get to go in the back and pray. And it's super, like, just feels really like good to have that sense of community. And yeah, my mom was very happy, and my parents were, and my dad was very happy that I started. I'm very stubborn, so if they weren't happy, perhaps I would still do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think you're like this too, like, aren't you? Yeah, but I don't think I've faced setbacks.
That's really awesome to hear that you had that support.
One thing I will say though, when I started in April of 2021, I was like addicted to the sport. Every night, jujitsu, like I just loved it. I wanted to go all the time. And I didn't I wouldn't call them setbacks with friends, but like I kept canceling on my friends. I'm like, sorry, I gotta go train. And it came to
Yeah.
a point where, like, one time one of my friends texted and she was like, listen, like, what about us? You need to start hanging out with us now. And yeah, so
Yeah. And you're like jujitsu friends. I don't know.
yeah, like,
Yeah, that's so funny. That actually happens to a lot of people that I hear from. I think it's like a joke in like on the internet that you end up you lose your friends, but then you gain like 30 friends in your gym. So
yeah.
it's not really that
And I
fun.
love my friends. That's the thing. Like, and it's just finding the balance, honestly, because what I've come to realize, which I didn't realize when I started, is how important rest days are. I
Yes.
just was like rapid fire, and I'm sure, like, because you've been doing it way longer than me. I was gonna ask your advice after the interview, actually, but on the rest days, I'll prioritize family and friends, and like tonight, for instance, tonight's gonna be a rest day,
So
and
how
yeah.
often do you train? What's your training routine like?
Um, okay, I'm not gonna include finals week because finals week I was training like once a week. I'm talking like, a typical, it'd be about jujitsu, ideally 4 or 5 times a week.
Okay. Okay.
That's my ideal number. When I first started, it was like 5, 6 times, but yeah, between 4 and 5, I think that's pretty ideal. Is that how much you train? Or you run
Um,
an academy?
my training dwindles a lot. So I have months where I'm training like 5 days a week. I recently got really sick in November, and then my kids got
Oh,
sick. And so that entire month, it was like we were sick for like 3 to 4 weeks, and that put a stop to the
oh,
interval of
I bet your
that I had.
cardio just like
It totally spiraled back, and I got back into it right before the break. Right now we're on a break because it's the holidays, and the
uh-huh.
academy's closed. But I was gassing out like you wouldn't believe. I was like, what the, and I looked at my instructor and I'm like, I'm really not feeling it today. And he's like, well, you were gone for like 4 weeks, like you weren't here. So,
Yeah.
just like pace yourself. And I know that, and I know that that is what happens. It's just part of the jujitsu cycle. But when you've been doing it for like this long, and you finally had, like, I finally had a routine going.
Mm.
Five, it was more of 4 days a week, like 4 days a week I was going. But getting
Okay.
the training for me is very different than for other people, because I gotta bring my kids home, I gotta give them dinner, and then I gotta run back. And so it, even doing that was really difficult, but I was like, no, I'm gonna get this in. But yeah, I would say that's pretty typical for most people. Like
Okay.
three times a week, I would say, is pretty typical for most
Okay.
people. People that like have shift work or their students will usually opt to like 2 to 3 times a week. I don't think I
Mm.
know anyone that trains once a week, because that's not something, as a jiu-jitsu academy, on we don't encourage that. We're like 2 days a week minimum, three is better, but like nothing more than two, because you're
That
not
makes sense.
really going to retain information if you're only coming in once a week.
Yeah.
um but yeah, no, that's good. So do you like, so you compete a lot, so what does your training look like do you attend like every class in the schedule, or are you more like rolling classes only, drilling classes only, comp classes? Like, what does that look like for you?
That's a good question because I'm trying to fix my competition mindset because I first competed in March of this year. And I would say that I wasn't mentally ready because, like, I've heard the phrase that train how you want to compete. One of the blue belts at the gym was telling me this. She's like, you got to train how you want to compete. And in March, in my first competition, I don't think I was like, ready in mindset to compete, but you were asking me what's my schedule like, right? For
Yeah,
competing?
yeah,
Okay. I How do I do this? I just train as much as possible and I try my best like a month out of a competition to build up my cardio cuz
yeah,
my cardio is not that great and I've always struggled with cardio. And I think the main thing, if I'm answering your question directly, the main thing for a competition is training as much as possible and building my cardio by running or, whatever. Yeah.
yeah. I feel cardio is really important. You can really feel it when your cardio goes down, and I really felt it these
Yeah.
last couple weeks where I wasn't. I can't run on the treadmill because I have, like, it aggravates my knee, but I'll walk on like an
So funny you
incline.
say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love running on the treadmill, and I will do it, but then I'll feel it, like,
In your knee, like in the middle of your knee.
just like right in the knee. Like,
That's
I
so
have
funny.
I don't have
Recently, I've
more.
been struggling. Sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say recently I've been struggling with that where I run and the middle of my knee, like right in the knee, it feels sharp. And one time I had ran like 3 miles 2 days before a competition and I couldn't even walk. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is really fast. So that's funny you feel the same way. Perhaps I thought it was just like
No,
over.
I think running does that to people. I've heard that from several people. And so I
Oh
went for
my goodness.
physio. My physio actually happens to do jujitsu as well. So she understands what jujitsu is, and what, your body parts need to do in order for you to have a good game. So that really fixed it, but I'll do the bike instead. Like, and I hate biking. I absolutely hate a stationary bike. It is so boring.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't pay me enough to do it every day. But yeah, the cardio on the treadmill, I feel like, is so important for your jujitsu, and you really feel yourself. I feel like I feel a lot faster. I don't gas out as much, and I don't know. I just feel a little bit more nimble. Like I don't, it's the gassing out part for me. I don't know what it is for you.
Are you talking about on the bike? Like you don't gas out on the bike or
No,
when
like
you're running?
when you're training jujitsu, like if you're supplementing cardio outside of jujitsu, it just I don't gas out as fast when
Yeah,
I'm
I
training.
noticed that as well. I definitely noticed that. Like if I'm consistent with keeping up cardio just as much as jujitsu, it's the same thing. And I think for me, an important thing that I realized, I subconsciously, whenever I'm doing like a strenuous activity, I tend to like shallow breathe and hold my breath. And I
Yeah,
remember in my first competition, I remember you responded to my story because I posted a clip of my first
I
competition, and
remember that.
I I pull guard on her and I throw the lasso in. And the entire time, I swear to you, I didn't realize I was holding my breath. This was like over the course of like 10 seconds. Like I pull guard so fast, I'm throwing a lasso. And by that time, you know, when your vision like goes like a little black.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, okay. So to add on to what you're saying about cardio, I think it's for me personally not to gas out. I need to that whole tell my brain in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the nose, and just keep breathing, keep working on my cardio, and that like helps me to not gas out either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Do you do any strength training at all? Like, is that part of your routine?
Okay, I recently started rock climbing, and I feel like
Okay.
that is strength. It is strength training, right?
Oh,
Is that
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So I feel like I'm trying to find the balance between rock climbing and jujitsu, but I feel they definitely go hand in hand more than any other sport because it's the grip strength. So
Yes.
recently, when I've been in jujitsu and I grab their gi, it's harder for them to break my grip because I'm so like, I'm still a newbie at rock climbing. I'm not saying I'm a pro and that I'm like, super this or super that, but I can see that if I continue rock climbing, it's gonna really help me in jujitsu.
Yeah.
And then so I'll do that like rock climbing, jujitsu, and then 2 times a week I'll participate in a workout class, which is like I think they call it pull and push. This is at the rock climbing gym, like pull and push. And that also works with jujitsu because it's just,
Absolutely. You're
that
always
full
pulling and pushing. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
So
Um, I went to
yeah.
a seminar and one of the instructor that was doing the seminar, that's what he talked about is just like you have to get really good at pulling and pushing, whether you're like pushing on a wall or you're pulling on
Um,
like a resistance band, like because that's all you're doing in jiu-jitsu if you think about it. Like you're trying to pull someone or you're trying to push them with your legs, your arms, your body, or something. So I find resistance bands to be really useful, or just using like a Smith machine because you're always going against some kind of resistance, right? Someone's always resisting when you're training. So
yeah.
yeah. Um, okay.
I have
So,
a question.
yeah.
Do we have time to ask a quick
Oh yeah,
question?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a
Okay.
discussion.
So in a competition, how do you train for that, that beginning part when you start and you're like going crazy with the other person, pushing and pulling? What is your like tip? Because I struggle with that part in a competition where I'll fully gas out in that portion of the match. How do you like deal with that, so
Yeah,
to
I
speak?
think a lot of people do. And then I kind of have this problem as well, is that you're so I think for me personally, and I don't know if this is the correct answer. Maybe
Mhm.
somebody, whoever's watching, might have a better answer than this. But I know for me, if I don't have a game plan in mind, then I'm spending so much time just trying to grip or breaking a grip. And that's that standing part where you exert so much energy in the beginning of a match.
Yeah.
And if I don't have like some kind of game plan in mind, then I'm using all of my energy there. And then the rest of the match, I just end up defending the whole time instead of
Mm.
being the offensive
Because
person.
you're
So
so
I
gassed
think, yeah, I think having a game plan and just, I think we overthink a lot in jujitsu where we're just overthinking about, should I do this? Should I do this? Okay, now I'm going to do this instead of just doing it. I don't know if we're frozen. Are you frozen?
Yeah. You're frozen, but I can hear
Oh,
you. Oh,
okay,
now
there
you're
you are. But yeah, I feel like we overthink a lot. And even when training in general, I feel like, especially at white belt, we overthink positions so much.
mm.
And then we get so comfortable with certain positions that we're not trying new things. So I was actually speaking to another girl before you, and she was saying the same thing, is that she's so comfortable with just, doing an X choke from closed guard that she kind of forgets that there's like other things that you can do. And I had the same problem when I was like white belt, blue belt, even when I got my purple belt, I was so comfortable with certain positions. Only now have I started to expand and try things that I've never really attempted before. So for example, De La Riva guard was something I never did at white belt. And now I'm doing a little bit more. Deep half guard. I've been doing a lot of deep half guard in the last little while, something I never did at white belt, because to be fair, you're learning fundamental techniques at white belt. But point I'm trying to make is if we're not trying new things, I feel like that kind of, we bring that into competition. And so we get like tunnel vision almost, that we're not thinking about just doing what we're good at. Instead, we're like, okay, like we kind of like put like this roadblock up for ourselves. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how I see it.
I totally makes sense, because sometimes I'll be competing and I'm like, Sana, like wake up, but it literally feels like this, like and so I'm trying to like teach myself to like break out of that, like okay, it's this, it's not this, it's like, you see what I'm saying? So I totally see what you're saying.
And I think I haven't competed in a while, but I do inshallah plan on competing this year. But I think that I think for me anyways, what really helped me break through that roadblock was training with people that I was kind of scared of training with. So that was a huge thing for me. Like we get so comfortable with like training with the same people. We have our favorite partners, and because we know we're going to beat them, right? But the minute we start training with somebody who we can't beat,
like
but that was a big thing for me. So I actually started training with people that I'm, their game is a lot better than mine. And so it forces me to do things that I normally would not be doing.
To add on to that, my wilderness mentor, Sama, she came to one of my competitions, and I had lost one of the matches to a wrestler. And she beckons me over and she's like, come here, when you go back to training, what I want you to do is train with wrestlers. I want you to train with wrestlers so you can learn to like adapt to their skill. And she doesn't do jujitsu, but it's just funny adding on to what you said, because that's the same thing she told me. She's like, I want you to go with wrestlers. So definitely.
Wrestlers are very explosive. They have very explosive grappling, and it's completely different. So I think that'll definitely help. So you said you train at a Muslim-owned school. That's actually really cool. What is that like? Is there like a huge Muslim population there? Is it kind of like a mix of the two? Do you feel like that's an advantage for you? What is that like?
So I train at Empire Training Grounds in Buena Park, and it's Muslim owned. Omar Sabha is the owner, and I would say you're talking about religion. Like, I think there's a mix. That's what you mean. It's not like just Muslim. Yeah, it's not 100% Muslim. Obviously, that'd be super cool, but it's like, I'd say like 50-50. And I think it's really cool to represent, because I don't know if you've like faced this, but sometimes like people see hijabis and they're like, they don't realize we're capable of like, all this cool stuff. So I just love representing in front of like those who aren't Muslim at the gym. And it's just super cool. So it's a mixed 50-50, I'd say. Have you ever been annoyed if you tap out a girl and they're like, oh, you're going too hard on me? Like, I'm just curious. Have you ever gotten any complaints about that?
No. Okay. No, I think the ladies I train with were pretty we understand that it's jujitsu and that we're not there to like waste time.
Play around or
and like you only have like a few hours during the week to do this. So, you kind of want to make the most of your time. I think for like, if I'm training with a brand new white belt that just walked in, obviously I'm not going to like go crazy on her.
To like tone down,
Yeah. But I feel like I toned it down way too much over the years. So I got used to
Interesting.
that. And I can't remember who said this. It was some jujitsu guy. I can't remember who it is. And I want to give them credit for this, but they said like, you will train the way that you train jujitsu is like whatever you put into practice is going to come out. So if you're constantly practicing and you're lowballing it and you're not going at the intensity as you should be, that's what you're going to bring into competition. So don't
Yes.
always hold back. Don't always be the one that's
Yes.
holding back, because that's going to become your normal. And once I understood that, I was like, that's what I've been doing for like the past 7 years. Like I've just been trying to befriend women so that they stay and so that they train. So I have a partner. But in doing so, it really set me back. So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I love about my coaches. Um, and just my teammates in general. Like sometimes they'll sound really aggressive, but what I've come to realize is that's for the best because they're pushing you to go into that fight or flight mode where you have to, you start to freak out, but then you start to go like all in, and
Mhm.
that's to train for the competition mindset. And I actually really appreciate them for doing this now because before I'd be like, what the heck? Like, relax, everyone. Like, why are you shouting? But now I'm like, I see the wisdom behind it. So I
Yeah.
totally agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think is the one, aside from it being a male dominated sport, what do you think stops women in general, whether they're Muslim or not, from taking up, like we don't see a lot of
I
women
totally see what you're
in
saying. Yeah.
sports. Like I feel like kids will do sports until like they'll do it in school, they'll do it in middle school, they'll do
Mhm.
it in high school, and then maybe they'll do it when they're, in college or university, but as soon as they get married and have kids, it's like done. What do you think
Totally.
is the one thing that stops people from taking up sports, whether it's combat sports or not? But what do you think is holding them back?
Okay, I have two things here. The first one is, you know what we were talking about earlier, just like a few minutes ago, about how jujitsu is like the least sexual sport, or like because you're the most grossest and you're the most like whatever.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who don't have any jujitsu background, they look at one video of jujitsu, and I've gotten this before. Well, they'll look at me and they'll be like, how can you do this with, like, that's just weird. Like, oh my goodness, like all that stuff. And I think I'm not saying that's for everyone. And I
Mhm.
don't want it to look like I'm generalizing like all girls who don't do jujitsu think this. That's
Right.
not true. Some think this. And I think it's just the idea of being so close and skin to skin with strangers,
Yeah.
and like sweating and all this stuff just like either grosses them out or makes them think that, it's too close for comfort. When in fact, ironically, I feel it's almost the opposite. Because if you're in a situation like that, God forbid, you're so used to being, close to contact in jujitsu, and, maybe someone's sweaty and whatever, that you'll know what to do. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like that's one of the reasons. And the second reason is, I remember I watched one of your videos once, and this is what this reason's going to be, is how people often think that I'll do one class, I'll do, once a month, and I'll be okay. Or like, I just don't have the commitment, the time. When you do jujitsu, you have to have the commitment. You have to have the discipline to keep going and to come up and to actively, consistently come over and over again to get better. And I think the concept of committing so long term to jujitsu scares a lot of people away. They're like, oh, 4 times a week, I can't do that. I work, I have kids, all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think those are two, I was thinking about this. These are the two main things that, in my opinion, what I have observed holds women back in jujitsu. And perhaps, let's say in like a week, I come across another reason and I'll be like, oh, actually, that trumps this reason. But from my knowledge, right now, these are the two main reasons that holds
Yeah.
women back. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm the same thought process as you. I think it's the long-term thing really bugs people because I don't think
Yeah.
people it's hard to see the big picture in jujitsu. It is difficult. Like even for me at Purple, and I've been in it for so long, sometimes I'm like, am I ever gonna get past this stage? Like it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know what the process is. I know that it's like it's an everyday thing. It's a long-term thing. Like your training never ever stops. The learning doesn't stop. And you often hear black belts who, they just get their black belt and they're doing their black belt speech and they're like, the journey starts now. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what does that even mean? Like what, like, like I don't understand it, but it is hard to see that long-term commitment. And I think, and that's why at my academy, that's why we always have like a women's program in like small chunks, because women always need a start date and an end date for whatever reason. It's hard for them to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this for the next 10 years, because no one can really predict what can happen unless
Yeah.
you really, really love the sport and you're like, you understand what it takes. It's
Yeah.
hard for people to get that.
Just like when you get a degree or when you're working towards a degree, you might not always feel like you want to continue. Like one day you might wake up and say, "Oh, I don't want to study today. I don't want to go to my internship today." You just got to keep going. And I feel like that's something with jujitsu. You're not always going to feel motivated to wake up and be like, "Okay, today I'm going to go and I'm going to armbar this person." You might wake up and think, "What the heck? I forgot everything." But you just got to keep going. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? That's
absolutely.
what I genuinely feel. That's what I tell myself on the days that I don't feel motivated to do anything.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
actually my next question is how do you stay
Oh,
motivated? So that's actually a really good point. Do you have like a jujitsu buddy? Like what's your advice to people that lose motivation? Because it is really, if you've been in it that long,
yeah.
people lose motivation. Like it happens to the best of us.
I would say I tell myself I don't care how like anxious or down or scared you feel today, just go. I don't care. You're just going to go. That's what I tell myself. And I know some people disagree with that mindset because they're like, "Oh no, you have to feel your emotions." Oh, 100% I feel my emotions, but I know that when you push that back, you push past that storm of
Yeah.
emotions and train. And when I walk out of the gym, guaranteed, I don't care how hard my day was, guaranteed I'm going to walk out feeling lighter, because
Yeah.
that's what jiu-jitsu does to us. You
Yeah.
just, even if all you did that time was just like, even if all you did that class was just like, if you were slammed inside control and you're trying to hip out as much as possible, you're still building your cardio. Something good always comes out of a jiu-jitsu session, so to
Yeah. I
speak.
like that. I like that point. Yeah, that makes
Ah, thank
total
you.
sense.
Discipline, yeah. Or
Um,
consistency. That's the word. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something I always tell people is like, even if you can only make it once a week, consistently make once a week, right? Like
Yeah.
don't miss out 3 weeks and then come back. Like you're just setting yourself back up. So whatever
Yeah.
consistency means to you, like stick to that.
Yeah.
What does your game look like? Like, are you more gi, no gi? Are you a guard player? Are you more like leg locks and entanglements?
Yeah.
Like what does your game look like?
Okay. So I started, last year I started with just gi. And recently I've been thinking to myself that I want to start no gi as well,
Okay.
because it's going to be cool to compete in both. But I would say I don't have enough knowledge on no-gi. I can't talk about no-gi as much because I've barely done it. But for the most part, 99% of my training is with the gi. And I feel like I'm a top player when
Okay.
I'm better on the top than on the bottom. And my favorite thing to do, I feel like I'm exposing myself if I have a future competitor watch this. My favorite thing to do um, is when I get on top, crush their face with my shoulder. Get their jaw. When I get control of their jaw and it's in the ground, you can do anything. They can't move. When you pin them, like, And sometimes it hurts so bad I've gotten taps, like only like
One of
3.
those. You're one of those.
Oh yeah.
I know
I
you're
don't know if
kind. I know you're kind. You're all about that shoulder pressure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's very effective. I will say it's very, very effective.
yeah, but at the same time, I feel wrong if I submit someone that way. I know a tap is a tap, that some mindsets are like a tap is a tap, like doesn't matter. But for me, I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna submit them, I'll control their head like that, but then I'll go for the, why am I blanking? What is this one when their arms up and you feed it in?
Americana.
Yeah, Americana. So I'll crush their face or whatever, and then I'll go for the Americana.
Okay.
And then, that's a cool move.
Yeah.
If I'm on the bottom, which I'm not usually, most usually not, but if I'm on the bottom, I play lasso. It's just something that naturally I gravitate towards. I'm not sure why. I've been trying to figure it out, but guaranteed when I'm on the bottom, I like to throw in the lasso, get the leg, and then sweep them so that I'm on top in my favorite position. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
So it
yeah.
all comes down to that position where I'm on top and inside control with their face on my shoulder and their face. But yeah, those are two like,
Nice. I like
yeah.
that combo. Yeah. The lasso is fun. I don't play it as much, but there was a time
What's
I
your
did.
game? Yeah.
What is my game? I have been experimenting a lot with deep half guard lately. Um, it's something that I've really, really enjoy. I'm enjoying getting into half guard, like getting myself in there. I don't know what it is, but it makes me so happy when I get myself into half guard or into deep half guard. There's something very powerful about that where I can move from one position to the other. And I don't know what it is, but just mentally it just makes me very happy that I can, that ability to do
Yeah,
that.
that's so
And then play, and then just getting right underneath someone. I remember going to a seminar, and it was a woman-led seminar, and she is very tiny. She was like black belt world champion. She was very tiny, and I'm like, as a tiny person, as somebody small who doesn't have a lot of weight, what, like, how are you supposed to play jiu-jitsu with bigger people? And she's like, get under them, get right underneath them, break their balance, and like, if you can't move them, go around them, or like, and she just kept emphasizing like you have to get directly underneath them. So things like X guard, De La Riva, you're not really under them, but X guard, deep half guard, like you're directly under your opponent and throwing them off balance. She's like, it's a very powerful thing that you can do, and you're not carrying their weight, right? You're really just off balancing them, and that's something that I don't know. It just really makes me happy. So
That's really interesting you say that. Not carrying their weight, you're just off balancing them.
yeah,
That's very interesting. I think I need to pick up on that ideology because when I'm on the bottom, I feel like, oh my God, okay, now I have to sweep them. Now I have to like pick them up and
pick
sweep
them
them.
up.
It's not.
Yeah, actually, that's something I learned at white belt, is that you can't, like, think of your opponent if you're going against like a 200-pound guy, let's just say, for easy
Yeah.
numbers. You can't physically pick a guy at like a 200-pound guy and move them. You can't physically do that. There's biology there, right? Like you can't physically do that, but you can move around them. You can get underneath them. You can off balance them. So those are things that I am starting to incorporate a little bit more. So yeah,
Wow.
I would
Talking
say
about
I'm
this stuff.
more, what's that?
No, go ahead. I was sorry. Bad habit about myself. I tend to bulldoze.
Oh, I do that too.
No.
I interrupt people a lot.
Okay.
I've been working on that. Um, so you said you don't do no-gi a whole lot. What is it about the gi that you're so comfortable with? What do you prefer about the gi? I know most women don't like no-gi because they feel a little bit exposed because
Oh, really? Oh,
no-gi
interesting.
clothing is just a little bit too exposing for a lot of women, so they don't do it. But what is it about the gi in particular that you really enjoy?
There's so many weapons on the
Yeah.
gi, I feel there's so many options. You definitely the grip strength, or like the grips. I feel like whatever you're always grabbing something, and it's
Yeah.
just it makes me feel comfortable that
Yeah.
I'm like able to grab something. Whereas in nogi, when I've of the few times I've tried it, I'm like they're so sweaty, like I can't grab their, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But that's because I'm
Absolutely.
a newbie, and maybe I don't have as much experience, but definitely the grips, and there's so many options to choke your opponent in a
Yeah.
gi. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm like that too.
Yeah.
What benefits has jujitsu brought to your life at a personal level? Like athletically, jujitsu makes us
Strong.
stronger, it makes us faster, but mentally, like what are some of the mental benefits that jujitsu has brought to you?
Goodness, where do I begin? Okay. When you lose a competition, initially you get upset, but you can't, in jujitsu, you can't back down. You have to figure out where you went wrong. You have to fix that gap to do better the next competition or the next time you roll with your partner. Similarly, in life, when you make a mistake, when you make an error, when you get a bad grade on a really important exam, you have to figure, this has taught me that you have to, instead of ignoring it, like old me would have been like, "Oh, I'm just not going to look at it, like whatever, I'll just try something else." New me, jujitsu sana, has been like, okay, no, try again, refocus your attention on what you didn't get right.
Mhm.
And I think just telling myself that over and over again, it helps. Or like, I don't know if that makes sense, but like
Yeah.
just finding little pieces where you went wrong. It's just like in jujitsu. So drilling this, I guess it comes back to the whole consistency conversation. When you drill jujitsu over and over again, you're fixing your mistakes. That has kind of like bled into my life with everything, fixing the whatever it may be over and over again.
Yeah. No, that's so
Did that
true.
make sense?
Oh yeah, 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 totally. I get what you're trying to say. Um, yeah, and I think that's like definitely you can bring that into any aspect of your life because I think we just give up so easily. It's so easy to just give up and tap out in jujitsu, but
Yeah.
the real mental strength is like, okay, let's try that again, or let's try to fix this, or let's
That's
not
what I'm trying to
tap out so quickly and let's like try to figure
fix.
out a way to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally see that. And I think it takes a long time to be able to get there because
Yeah.
it's so easy to just tap and call it quits, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to,
Fight till the very end, basically.
yeah,
Even if you
absolutely.
feel gassed out, even if you feel gassed out, you're tired, you're scared, just keep going.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think that helps in social interactions too, doing jujitsu. When you talk to strangers, you're more confident. You're squared up to them. You're looking at them in the eye. You have great communication skills. You're like, that's definitely from jujitsu, I feel.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
As a somebody who wears hijab, did you
Yeah.
ever feel that hijab was a limitation for you in jujitsu? Did you ever see it as an issue for you? Because I know a lot of women do struggle with that. What did that look like for you?
So for the most part, no. And I feel that's because I'm a top player. I'm not always on the bottom being crushed and my scarf going everywhere. But there are two scenarios in which I do feel that it was sort of a setback. Once I was in a competition and I went for the single leg, but I didn't go all the way through.
Okay.
So she ended up taking my back.
Okay.
And when she took my back, she had me in a chokehold. And after the match was over, a random stranger came up to me and he's like, all you should have done is just take this hand and like pushed it up like that. And you would have gotten out and then, turn your body so that you're in her guard or whatever. And I remember my coach was saying this to me as well, like move her arm up. And I remember in that moment, I couldn't exactly because obviously like the scarf would have like whatever gone away. But
Yeah.
I think yeah, that was one. And then the other scenario was I had gone for, this was in training at my gym, I'd gone for a really good single leg and they ended up, what's the term? When you shoot for the single leg and they have your head here.
Yep. Headlock.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah. And I tripoded on from the floor,
Okay.
and I just needed to like pull my head out. But again, I couldn't because I felt like
Yeah.
this hijab going like this. I
Yeah.
ended up getting out of it, thankfully. But those are the two main scenarios that I find myself in a lot, that I'm like, darn it, like just just stay on. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are
Yeah.
like the two common setbacks, I feel.
Yeah, that is really tough. And that's happened to me too. It's always when you're in like a guillotine type of position or
Yeah.
some kind of headlock and you're trying to move their head, or you're trying to like base on your head and move yourself forward. The same, it just happened to me the other day and I could feel it
Yeah.
starting to like,
Uh-huh.
it wasn't slipping yet, but I could just feel like it was
You
going to happen.
know.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, what do I do? So, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, I'll just do it and I'll just like pull it back, but it really just
Yeah.
like the focus just goes and you're not focused on
Yeah.
your jujitsu anymore.
Yeah.
You're like, oh crap, this is so embarrassing. You're trying to fix it. Final
Very
questions. I love the discussion that we're having here.
Oh, me too.
Actually,
I'm
two
like getting
questions. I know I can keep talking for like another 2 hours. Um, Final two questions. What does your jujitsu training look like in Ramadan? Do you take the whole month off? Do you still train in Ramadan? How does that look like?
I still train. Um, I still do it, and I think it builds more resilience. And I
Mhm.
feel like as human beings, we're more resilient than we realize. And we've just been conditioned by this society to like always be comfortable, always make sure this, blah, blah, blah. You're always comfortable. Wrong. You're supposed to be resilient. Like when you look back to the prophet's time, that was resilience. And I aspire to get to that level of resilience. So what I usually do is a few months out of Ramadan, I will purposefully not drink water throughout cardio sessions of in jiu-jitsu, not cardio sessions, throughout rolling sessions, to
Okay.
feel that thirst, to get thirsty and condition my body to get used to it. So that when Ramadan comes around, it's not just like, bam, like, oh my God, I'm so thirsty, I'm about to pass out. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I still train in Ramadan, and I condition my body for resilience about 2 or 3 months out of
Okay.
Ramadan.
That's
Yeah.
really good.
Thank you.
That is something I might actually start doing. So I do a lot of intermittent fasting. So the food
Oh
part is
yeah.
fine. I can go
Yeah.
without food. It's the water,
Me too.
the water that really gets to you. And it's
Yeah.
really just at the rolling part, because rolling is what we do like at the end of class, like the last, 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, and that
Same.
last round is really, really difficult. That's when I'm like, okay, I really can't do this.
Yeah.
But I like that you're training your body to get ready for jujitsu, because you can always do it. It's just you have to have like the mental strength to be able to do that. I
Yeah.
like,
And even if you're not fasting, I remember I have a female black belt coach. She's awesome, Tara White. You might have seen her matches. She's like, awesome. And she said something once. She was like, she does the same thing where she sometimes doesn't drink water because what if like in a competition, if it's inside, what if the air conditioning runs out and everyone's like
yeah,
dying, panting, because you gotta prepare for the worst essentially. Or what if this is like an extreme funny example. It might sound funny, but what if you're being chased in the dead of night and you're just running for your life and you're like, where's the water you're not gonna, you
yeah,
gotta prepare for the worst. You
yeah.
know
Or
what I'm
you won't
saying?
have time in between matches too, right? Like sometimes you don't
Exactly.
know how your match is gonna go. You might get time to relax, and
Drink
sometimes you're like you have to go to your next match.
rapid fire. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So what last question here before we do our rapid fire, what advice would you give to someone who might be scared, unsure of doing jiu-jitsu? I know you touched on this in the beginning a little bit, but what final advice would you have would you give women who, whether they're Muslim or not, who look at jiu-jitsu and they're like, oh, there's no way I can do that.
Yeah.
what would you say to them?
Okay, so let's first let me rewind to when I first started the gym. I had like severe pre-gym anxiety. I don't know if you've ever experienced it.
Oh yeah.
That that gym anxiety. And to this day, people won't believe it, but I still get pre-gym nerves. Whatever gym I go to, whether it's the rock climbing gym, whether it's my jiu-jitsu gym, I get so anxious and nervous, and I'm sometimes I get annoyed with myself because I'm like, you've been here for nearly 2 years and you still get pre-gym nerves. So I'm just throwing that out there because a lot of people, they see like how I compose myself and they're like, Sana, you get nervous, you get scared. Like I always thought you're the confident type. No, I get gym nerves. I get really bad gym nerves. But I would say you just got to go for it. You just got to take that jump. And I know that's scary. And I know that can sound cliche because it's like really everyone says that.
Everyone says
The first leap.
yeah.
It's the first leap. But I truly believe that you got to jump right into it. And you have to, it's like, okay, there's a type of therapy. I don't know what it's called, but when someone has a fear, they expose themselves to that stimuli over and over again, and they keep exposing. I don't know how true the scientific, if it's backed up to being like beneficial. Maybe it can be more harmful than being beneficial, but I'm just taking that as an example of similar to jujitsu. You have to keep exposing yourself to the stimuli over and over again.
Absolutely.
The nerves might not go away, but you're going to get some benefit out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. No, it's about facing your fears, right? Like you won't know what you're capable of unless you put yourself in that position. I think jujitsu does that all the time. Like you're constantly putting yourself, sometimes we end up in those positions because it just happens. But I know for me, I will purposely put myself in side control on the bottom, right? I'll put myself there just so I can learn to get out, so I can learn to face that fear and deal with it head on instead of, running away from it or not facing it all together.
Yeah. I have something else to add on. So a lot of the times we get anxious and we try to like block out the thoughts, like, oh my God, like block them out. But recently what I've been trying to do is like acknowledge that intrusive thought and watch it pass your brain. Like say, okay, oh, but what if this happens? Okay. What if like this, blah, blah, okay. Just say, okay, acknowledge it, and then it'll pass. It'll pass faster than if you're like not letting it in. You're like, stop. You know what I'm saying? So that's another piece of advice I would give to a newbie in jiu-jitsu is acknowledge the scared thoughts and scared feelings you have. It's normal. Acknowledge it. And then when you acknowledge it, use it. Use it as your fuel.
Yeah, exactly. Use it as your fuel. I like that. All right. We're going to do some rapid fire questions.
Okay,
so
let's do it.
Get ready for this. Are you a guard, puller, or passer?
Passer.
Okay. Gi or no gi? You already answered this one. Wrist locks, are they dirty or legit?
Legit.
Oh, you're one of those. You're one of those. I am not a fan of wrist locks. I absolutely hate them.
Wrist locks is
wrist locks where you like psh.
I'm gonna say legit. A win's a win.
Oh man.
It's stupid, it's not fair, but a win's a win.
I absolutely hate wrist locks. I've been in positions where I can wrist lock someone and I will get there and I'll do it, but I'm like, I'm not gonna like crank on.
You're not gonna do it.
But I hate doing them, and I hate it when it happens to me.
I haven't experienced it enough to have like, maybe if you interview me next year, I'm gonna be like, let me tell you, it's awful. I hate it. So, but for now, it's legit.
All right, I'll take it. Work or play?
Work or play? What do you mean, work or play?
Do you prefer working really hard or playing hard?
Play hard.
Okay. Money or happiness?
Happiness.
Cats or dogs?
Gosh, both. Cats.
Oh, Summer or winter?
Summer.
Sweet or salty?
Salty.
Morning or evening?
Morning.
Do you watch shows in one episode at a time, or do you binge watch the entire season?
One at a time.
Physical strength or mental strength?
Mental strength.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Extrovert.
Night out or night in?
Night out.
Would you kill a bug if you find it inside, or do you take it outside?
Take it outside.
Do you prefer driving or flying when you're going on a trip?
Driving.
Social time or alone time?
Alone time.
Are you more of a thinker or a doer?
Doer.
Would you rather have street smarts or book smarts?
Street smarts.
Do you learn by watching or learn by doing?
Doing.
Fresh food or fried food?
Fresh food.
Are you more cautious or bold?
Bold.
Are you somebody who will cannonball into the pool, or will you dip your toe first?
Cannonball.
And would you rather sleep in late or take a long nap midday?
Take the long nap midday.
All right, nice. Thank you so much for your time. It was lovely chatting with you. I'm glad we finally got to do this.
I'm so happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate you taking the time out to interview me. Appreciate it. And it was awesome to meet you. Like, finally.
I know. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and then it's been absolutely insane on my end. So I'm glad I finally got to do this. It's always inspiring to hear about what other women are up to. I know we see our highlight reels on Instagram and stuff, but it's nice to hear that, you know, we kind of have the same struggles. Doesn't matter like where we train or how we train or what we wear when we train or where we come from. Like, I feel like everybody has the exact same struggles, and you know, our relationship with jiu-jitsu is no different than anyone else's. So it's really awesome to hear that. And hopefully we'll get to train together one day. I would love to come down to California. I heard there's like a jiu-jitsu school on like every street down there. Like there's like one in every corner. So
it's
that's super cool. That's awesome.
So I'm pretty much off of school until August of next year. So we may like link up for if I want to come up to Canada. I'd love to train with you. And a little appreciation note, side note that I just remembered. You probably don't remember this, but I came across your YouTube video on the Asia sports hijab. You were talking about it being like the best one for jiu-jitsu. And that was a time in my life where I was really struggling with I thought I couldn't do jiu-jitsu because I couldn't find the proper hijab. And I was like really like bummed out. I was like, okay, like it is what it is. Maybe it's not meant for me. And I came across that video and you changed. I'm not even kidding. You changed my jiu-jitsu life basically because I was able to do so much because I got the hijab. So for that, I wanted to tell you thank you. And I'm glad I'm telling you this like live, not just like over a message. Genuinely, thank you, Zenab. Like I appreciate you.
That means so much to me. I'm so sad that they're not continuing with Asia Sport anymore. I was actually so heartbroken. I was like,
I didn't know that.
They actually they ended the business. So that really sucks for us. So that's why so they ended it. I think it was December 10th was their last day. Unfortunately, I don't know what the reason is, and I hope they come back one day, but it was a sad day because I hear that from a lot of people too, that the Asia Sport hijab was the hijab for jiu-jitsu, and it was like they found out through my YouTube channel. But hopefully, inshallah, I do plan on coming out with one. It's just there's a lot of back and forth, and there's a lot of reviewing and making sure that it's like it's perfect or as close to perfect as possible, because I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect hijab. But thank you again for your time, and hopefully this video you're watching it will inspire other women to take up jiu-jitsu and see that it's like anybody can do it. It really is just more about the mental aspect than
Yeah,
what's out here. So yeah, have
I
a
totally
great
agree.
rest of the day.
You
Uh,
as well.
and happy new year. Inshallah, the new year,
That's right.
comes in with a lot of blessings and that we, reach our goals, going into the new year. And I
Yeah.
will leave it at that.
Okay. Happy New Year and thank you again, and I will see you.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
All right. Thank you, Sam.
So there you have it. Thanks, guys, for listening along. I hope you took inspiration from Sana's story. If you've never trained jujitsu before, hopefully Sana inspired you. Even though I've been training for a while, I always take inspiration from everyone that I speak to, and I definitely learned a lot from Sana as well. If you are a Muslim woman who trains jujitsu anywhere in the world and you've been training for more than 10 months, please get in touch with me. I would love to hear and share your story as well. You can either send me an email at info@ladygijujitsu.com, or you can send me a DM on Instagram. Here's my Instagram handle here, and I will send you an intake form so that I can get to know you a little bit better before the interview. Thanks again for listening, and you'll catch me on my next video. Bye.